Alright, okay. Good evening. Welcome to today's session over here. Okay, so we'll get started for the weekly market outlook. Okay, so as usual, what we're gonna be doing is to walk you through overview of the market, share with you some of the opportunities, and then after which, we'll see if you guys have any quick questions. We'll take a couple of them. Then after which we'll wrap up the session and then also update you on potentially some of the future events. Okay. Good. So this week over here, if you take a look at the events, in terms of Forex Factory, right? We do have a lot. In comparison to like last week. Last week was fairly quiet. Okay. This week here, there are basically quite a bit of a news, right? So if you take a look, tomorrow, Tuesday afternoon, we do have the UK Clement count change. This is actually quite, I would say, equivalent to NFP kind of sort of data. Okay, it's just a slightly different name, but basically that's labor related in the UK. Then we have a couple of Euro PMI data. Following that, we have the pound flash services PMI, right? So if you're looking at PMI data on the UK side, services will be one of the most important aspect because that's the major contributing factor to the UK economy. Okay, so of course, we can see here the expected is 49.4, right? If there's a huge deviation on that, we may see pound move a little bit. Okay, one of the potential pair I'm looking at this week is on the pound dollar. So with pound news that may potentially create some kind of volatility, that would be a good confluence as well. Okay, so that's on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, we do have the Australia CPI. Again, that will be important because the latest RBA statement did hint that they may consider one more rate hike. And of course, then that also depends on like the next CPI year-on-year data that's going to be released, right? So you can see, latest was 5.2. We are expecting about 5.4. If the CPI year-on-year data actually comes out less than 5.4, I think we may see more downside on Aussie. But of course, if you can see somewhere between 5.4, 5.5, then the Aussie would likely strengthen because that would reinforce the possibility that RBA will actually do a rate hike. And then on Wednesday evening, we have the Bank of Canada rate statement. Okay, we do not expect any changes right now, but we may get a surprise rate hike. So do keep an eye on that possibility too. Okay, so that's on Wednesday. And going into Thursday, we have the ECB press conference. Okay, and of course, the ECB rate statement, right? So same thing here. We do not expect that to be increasing, but again, we may get some surprise going into the news. So keep an eye on volatility related to that. Okay. To end off the week, we do have the core PCE price index from the US. Okay, and that's going to be important because that's again inflation related. And are we going to see another rate hike in November? Okay, we'll probably need to see some data related to inflation in the US to kind of strengthen that possibility. Okay, so this week, almost every other day, we do have some important data to keep track. Okay, so if you are looking for new trade opportunity, there are many. If you're looking for catalysts to get involved in certain trade opportunities, there are as well. Okay, so bear in mind in terms of some of these events that we have. Okay, good. So let's jump into the charts over here. Okay, let's start off with dollar index. Okay, now the dollar index for the past entire week, right, last week itself, we're basically in this consolidation. Okay, and there's no trade for us in some of the major pairs over here simply because if the dollar is going to consolidate, there's no reason to be trading within this zone, right? Because it's so difficult to actually catch profits out of it. Okay, now looking at the dollar index, I think there's a good possibility we may shift a little bit into the next pattern that may develop into something like this, where this can turn into kind of a little bit of a double topish structure. Okay, now why I say that is because this development looks pretty corrective, and that suggests that we may get a short-term bounce up, right, for the dollar. And of course, after which we will then see a potential double top. Okay, so I would say that if you're very interested in some of the short-term trades, the dollar index actually provide, or say if the dollar index provides some clarity, then of course, the major pairs like euro dollar would give you that potential trade as well. Okay, so if I kind of break this down here, you can see short term we may get this move to the upside, but of course depending on the style, are you short term, are you intraday, or are you more of a swing trader, this buy here may or may not be relevant. But if you ask me, when the market is here, looking for the sell is something that I'll be very, very interested in, because the downside is naturally going to be bigger than the upside. Okay, so I'm still overall leaning towards a bearish bias, which means I'm actually focusing on sell trade opportunity, but this is not the sell setup. If the market can comes out towards 107.35, the recent high here, that would be a much better sell point for me. Right, so that's on the dollar index. So this week here we may get a little bit of an upside, and then for euro, okay, that's where we may get a little bit of a downside, right? Okay, so quick adjustment. Okay, so yeah, if you're more of a short-term trader, you can consider looking for sell trade on the euro. Okay, you can utilize a little bit of a breakout technique. Okay, so of course depending on how aggressive you are, you can even drop to the lower time frame over here. Look out for low points such as this, right, would be a decent breakout entry. You can look at it from a perspective of a little bit in terms of a double top. Okay, a break of this low here will give you that short-term trade to the downside. Okay, so if you're looking at sell, the target for euro dollar would likely be somewhere around 1.0475, okay, towards the previous low, which is very, very close to that, around 1.0450. I would suggest then, take profits off that area and see how the market is going to react, and I'll be definitely more interested in the upside after that. Okay, so that's on the euro. To me, the downside is not very attractive. I'll be focusing more on the upside. Pound dollar, we may get a decent crawl development here, okay, and that's something I'll be very, very interested in. Okay, now if I were to add in a little bit of a drawing, okay, I would say that ideally this little crawl would get into the zone, okay, and what I want to see would then be a H1 crawl, right? So over here, so we have a 4-hour potential crawl development. If this comes down here, right, so that will be a 4-hour crawl, potential double bottom for a bounce. And ideally what I want to also see is as it comes down, it forms a smaller crawl pattern here on the H1. Right, so if I'm able to see that, then of course that will be an additional confirmation on the lower time frame to give me an entry, okay, to take this all the way back up. First target here is definitely this minor high, right? And the risk reward ratio is definitely very, very worthwhile. Okay, so I would say GBP USD definitely is going to be one of the crucial pair I'm going to keep watch for the week. If I can get a setup, I'll be very interested in the upside. Okay, targets will be this area, right? TP1 will be around 1.2335. The entry zone area is somewhere around 1.2040, right? Somewhere around there. Okay, Aussie, I'm basically neutral. We do have the CPI data coming in for the Aussie this week. Again, this kind of pattern, nothing really much there. I'm not too keen in selling, especially we're getting into like, this zone here where price has yet to fill, to break it, right? So I'm not too keen to sell. I'm a bit cautious in the buy because we don't really see some kind of impulsive break to the upside yet. If I can continue to see some crawl here, again, depending on the situation, I may not be interested in the upside with this breakout. I would rather wait and be a little bit more conservative with Aussie. See if I can get a first impulsive. If this is going to be a crawl, I'll wait for the first impulse, wait for the correction. and then likely we'll get involved in that trade from there. Okay, this is a little bit different from the pound simply because the pound over here have this first push up, right? But the Aussie here has been struggling quite a bit. Okay, so you can see push up, came back down, push up, came back down. So I'm just a bit more cautious on it. Okay, so Aussie may have something, but I'll be more conservative as compared to maybe the pound dollar. I'm willing to go a little bit more aggressive on that. Okay, yeah. Dollar Canadian here, we are looking at a possibility of a crawl. I think that would likely develop. Okay, because if you zoom in a little bit, right, this seems to be turning into a. Sorry, I'll put back the channel. Okay, change this a little bit. Okay, I'll take the 1, 2, 3 instead. Okay, I'll do something like that. Now, there's a good possibility that we'll see a crawl here. Seems like the market is doing that, right? I mean, we can't get a first little push up, coming down. This is going back up. If we can get another move down, another move up, then that would be a very nice little crawl. Okay, so we kind of have this top push down, very corrective nature. We have a crawl pattern here, potentially a double top here as well. I'll be very interested in the sell. Okay, so be patient a little bit. I want to see as the market come back towards this zone 1.3765 to 1.3785. I want to see if I can get a H1 crawl set up to get involved in the trade. Okay, so you can see this push up, this came down, this went up, right? Probably you'll break this a little bit, does a bit of a retracement, another push back up. That would be the area. So on the H1, as it approaches back up, if we can get a setup here, this would be the trade to get involved in it. Right? So yeah, definitely something to look out for in terms of dollar Canadian. Okay, you probably need to give it a bit of while, but something like this would present itself as a sell trade opportunity. Okay, yeah, so that's another pair to keep watch. Okay, dollar yen, not really much that's developing. You can see how the market has been consolidating all this while. So for my suggestion on the dollar yen, just stay out of it. Okay, just leave it aside for now. Okay, so I'll not talk too much about that. XAU, okay, so gold here, we're expecting kind of a pullback, right? I mean, the market has actually moved off quite significantly to the upside recently, right? So wait for a pullback. I think this is a little bit shallow as well. There's a good possibility we may even see a deeper pullback. Okay, yeah, something like that, right? I'm not surprised if the pullback is going to be deeper because after a really extended move, you don't want to be overly aggressive in getting involved the buy, right? Because there's a lot of things that can happen after over aggressive move. People taking profits there. There's some counter trend traders jumping in, so that would contribute to a deeper pullback. So the long-term direction on gold is a buy. I'm only interested in that for now, but I want to wait for the pullback first. Then only I get involved in it, right? So would I sell this at the current price point? Not really. Okay, there's no reason to be selling as after this huge move. Okay, so yeah, that's my take, right? I'll be patient on gold. Unlikely it's gonna be a setup this week. Okay, you probably just want to put this aside, maybe come back next week on gold. Okay, now this week are the ones that I've actually tagged, right? You can see the one on pound dollar CAD, it's definitely those. For me, I have a trade on crude oil. This is actually triggered last Friday. If you're in this trade, again, suggest to shift stops to break even because this recent impulsive drop is decent enough for us to consider shifting stops already. We don't expect it to go back to our entry point. And for crude oil over here, we're basically expecting kind of extend this trend line a little bit, right? We're expecting the market to actually continue lower with a final target around $77.75. Now, it may or may not go there because we also have this key level that we need to, of course, take note of as well. The previous low around $81.80. We then also need to take note of the 50% mark of this pullback. Okay, we may get some reaction around there as well. So I'll see, okay, if let's say the market continue to drop towards the 50 around $86.60, I may consider to take partial profits first. Okay, and depending on how the reaction of this here, we'll hold on to that with a potential target to around $81.80. Okay, and then the final target would be around $77.75, right? So crude oil here, there's no reason to be buying at the moment. Okay, if you don't have any sell, then of course you can go down to the hourly. If you can get a 3-wave sideways move here, that will be a sell trade setup as well. We can trade a breakout. Okay. For me, I traded this breakout point, right? So my entry is here, pretty decent so far. If you miss that, then just wait for a pullback, and then of course the direction is still downside as of now. Okay, so crude oil is something to note. Equities, I think equities here we may see a little bit more downside. Okay, so not so great for the stock market so far. We get a bounce here, but this drop seems pretty impulsive. Okay, so that lead me to look at it from a perspective that this may develop into a bigger channel. So short-term downside, if you can get any kind of corrective move this week, we are expecting one more push to the bottom of the channel around 4085 for S&P. Okay, so yeah, this one I'm not too keen in the sell, right? Because whenever I look at equities, I'm actually more of a longer term investor perspective. So when I look at this, I know, okay, now is not a good time to be overly aggressive in adding position for certain stocks or even position on the index. If you're doing like dollar cost averaging or long term investing, okay, be a little bit patient. Expect this to actually come back down somewhere closer towards 4085. Then you can look for, you know, that position to buy up, right, in the long run. Okay, so that's on the S&P side of things. Pound yen here, I'm also looking at a possibility of a 3-wave move and a buy setup. Okay, from there. Okay, this one again very simple and straightforward, right? We're basically looking at it from a perspective of an impulse. 1, 2, 3. If I can get a crawl pattern or H1 there, that will be my buy trade. Okay, so pound yen is actually another pair that is good to actually keep watch for this week. Okay, so any chance of scaling in on WTI, right? So yeah, I mean I would say if you really have a sell, then you can wait for a sideways move here to scale it in, right? But again, you need to get a very clear corrective pattern first. If this continue to drop like that on the H1, right? Don't scale in first, okay? Because if this is a crawl, this would likely be a leading diagonal. You expect a pullback, then only you scale in here, okay? Or you scale in with a breakout. So depending on how the market is going to develop, we may get a scale in this week as well, okay? But even if you don't scale in, I would say that downside, like with a single position on crude oil, trading it to downside is more than enough. Okay? Yeah, but of course, if you're presented with a scale in opportunity that is very clear, that's a golden opportunity to add on to our winning positions too, right? Okay, yeah, so that's on WTI. Yeah, so pound yen, we talk about it. Euro pound over here, I think this week we're likely gonna see that pullback. Now overall, I'm actually bullish on the euro pound, but I don't trade this pair very actively simply because I don't like how it's often developing. It's very choppy in nature, you know. It doesn't really give us a very clean, impulsive move. Now we did get this break, which is relatively impulsive to this, right? But you can see even with that move to the upside, the pullback are often quite deep, right? So that's not something I like. Okay, so euro pound, while I don't trade it, the analysis and the pattern seems to suggest that if this forms a corrective move here, we are looking for upside. So short term, we are expecting the pullback, after which we are expecting more upside for euro pound. Okay, so from a larger picture perspective on the daily scale, let me clean up a little bit in the past, right, to make the charts a little bit cleaner. Okay, yeah, so we're likely seeing this as a overall pullback, right, of this move. Okay, so this move up here may be simply a bigger corrective pattern for another move down, right? So the buy gives us a the daily chart gives us a better understanding on the bigger picture perspective. For any buy trade here, roughly where can we target? So if you take a look, I think this zone here kind of have quite a bit of a reaction. So, any buy would probably be the last wave up. Okay, so if I go back to the 4-hour, right? This pullback, any buy here would likely be the last push to the upside. After which, then it doesn't mean that the market can go higher, but what I mean is, after this last push, you don't want to be overly aggressive in getting involved in buy trade, but you rather want to be patient, or in fact, look for potential reversal trade after which. Okay? But for now, if you get a corrective pullback, basically you're still looking for buy. Okay, Aussie yen, quite similar to pound yen. Okay, if you can get a dip to the downside, then that would opens up the 3-wave move. And of course, ideally, this one here, if you can see again, an hourly crawl, that would be a decent buy trade. Okay, so both the yen, pound yen, and Aussie yen, I think that's interesting to keep watch. Pound Australia. Okay, so pound Australia here, if I can quickly adjust this a little bit. Okay, that's what we're looking at. Yeah, we're basically waiting for one more push first, right? So we have this as a 1 set, 1, 2, 3, and then this area will be our buy setup. Okay, so be a little bit patient. I don't think you want to be buying into this kind of pattern structure, right? Because there's a good chance this may come back down first. So wait for the pullback, and by the time it reaches this zone, ideally again we want to see a crawl. If you can get that, then of course that will be a decent buy trade. And the upside over here, right now it's a little bit too early to determine the final upside, but rough estimation, it will bring us somewhere around like 1.9530. Okay, so this one I don't think it's an early kind of like this week trade. Maybe it's an early next week trade, because we want this to come down relatively slow, right? So you just need to be patient about that. Okay. Bitcoin continue to rally. Okay, so I think overall there's no reason to be selling, but don't buy at the top, right? So just give it time for the pullback. Okay, so ideally you want to see again a very nice little 3-wave move, right? So wait for something like that. I mean, getting involved after a pullback is always better in your risk to reward ratio, right? Even this year you can see the pullback. So wait for something like that, then you get involved in the buy again. Okay, so Bitcoin is not something that might develop for a trade this week. Okay, so I'm not too concerned about it. Okay, so the ones that I'm tagged are the ones that you probably want to pay a bit more attention. Okay, yeah, so those are the few. Okay, dollar franc kind of like push back up, right? Okay, I would say for dollar franc, for those of you looking at this, do expect a deeper pullback. Okay, because this move, yeah, it's a bit hard to say right now, but of course, depending on how the market is going to turn out moving forward from here, because that seems corrective, right? So what we can do is we can still expect a drop, and after that, only then the bigger pullback happens, right? But selling at this point in time around this area is not something that I'm going to be very interested at. Okay, why? Because if you look at where we came from this low, okay, the market went up. We're kind of close to the midway point, right? And the move down doesn't really give us some kind of a decent pullback. So at some point in time, we're going to get that, right? So that's what we're expecting. Therefore, I'm not too keen to be selling there. I want to wait for that pullback first before kind of like really looking into a sell trade. Okay. Aussie Canadian. Aussie Canadian is, yeah, Aussie Cat. Overall, a little bit on the upside, right? I think this one here probably you want to look for some trade, short-term trades like that. Okay, so this to complete this three-wave move, right? Okay, so yeah, that's on Aussie Cat. Okay, yeah, something like that. But to me, I think Aussie may not. I mean, if you are focusing on Aussie, right? So I would say Aussie yen may be a little bit nicer in terms of the setup that will come to you compared to Aussie Cat. Right? Aussie Cat is still valid, but basically you are trading within just like this range, right? Because this seems corrective right now. But this can easily just keep correcting like that. Okay? And if that's the case, then that would be the, again, trading the range, right? Yeah, so I think you want to, if you're trading this, you just need to pay a little bit more attention, right? Like, what's the pattern developing? Did it evolve to something else? But for now, it seems to suggest a little bit more that the probability is a little bit tilting towards upside, right? There's a higher chance that it may go up first. Okay, pound New Zealand. Okay, avoid this. Okay, why? Because basically it's going up, but it's struggling already, right? You can see a little bit of a crawl formation. Wait for the pullback first. Then maybe somewhere there, 50% mark, three-wave pullback. Then only we look for the buy. Okay, so pound New Zealand, nothing there. I think Euro Kiwi probably the same thing, right? Don't try to catch this. If you want to try to catch the counter trend, okay, just bear in mind you're trading counter trend. You have, I think Euro New Zealand have something there, but to me, I think it's, for me, right, it's a bit too aggressive. Okay, you can take a look at from it from a perspective that this is a little bit of a crawl, and you look for the break here. But to me, I feel a bit too aggressive. Okay, because this crawl here, there's no real, like double top kind of pattern to trade it down, right? It's just basically the crawl itself. So the confluencing factor is not very, very high, right? So I personally would not, really even put too much emphasis on that. So Euro New Zealand, I would say, is quite similar to pound. I would suggest to just wait for a pullback and then look for the buy instead. Why? Because the momentum is there. Okay, you follow the overarching momentum. I think that would be better. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, Euro CAD, yeah, it can continue to move up. So we did not really get that move down, right? So looking at things here, sometimes we are expecting a little bit lower to get involved with the trade if you're looking at EuroCAD. You need to accept that, you're not gonna catch every single move, right? So this is a good example of like we're expecting it to come down a little bit more before we buy it. It did not, right? So if you're looking at this, you probably have a missed trade. It means you did not manage to get involved in it, but it's fine, right? I mean, it's part of trading, okay? So right now, looking at things developing, I would say there's a good possibility this would just continue to push higher. Okay. So, EuroCAD here, even I can use the Fib extension measurement right now. Okay, which is basically around the same zone now. Okay. don't buy now, but from here, if you can get another pullback, right, then of course that is still a buy opportunity, right, because you're still expecting it to go towards 1.4670. Okay, and then you can see it as a 1, 2, 3 internal three-wave move as well. Okay, so EuroCAD upside. Okay, if you can get a pullback, a three-wave pullback, then yeah, that will be a decent buy trade with a target at 1.4670. Yeah, so clear direction, clear structure as well on EuroCAD. Okay. Okay, CAD franc, Euro franc. Okay. Euro franc, not a lot of things, right? To be looking at it here, you definitely want to keep an eye on this zone, quite a significant area. Have a little bit of a bottoming formation. Okay, of course, divergence is there. But you want to also be careful because this can play out a little bit longer, right? Instead of just like a simple little bottoming, it can still play out into something like that. Okay, or it may not go all the way out, right? It may just kind of retest after that crawl formation. Basically just retest this, and then after which it can still go back down, right? So yeah, we need to then of course just monitor how the market is going to develop, right? But for right now, I think I wouldn't personally trade anything off this chart. Okay, because if you're looking at buy, right, very simple thought process over here. If you're looking for the buy, it needs to clear off this area, because if you're going to buy somewhere there and then your target is here, the risk reward is just not going to be, it's not going to make sense at all, right? So if you're focusing on a buy trade, right, then you want it to break above before you consider buy, because you need to clear off the zone, right? You can see that zone. And then if you're looking for sell, you naturally want to wait for it to enter the zone before you look for the sell, right? Then your risk reward is going to make more sense, right? So right now we're just here. Buying it doesn't make sense. Selling it is not an ideal price point as well. So for that kind of thought process, you can see why I would say nothing much on Euro franc. Okay. And then for CAD franc, yeah, CAD franc not ideal right now as well. For I mean, you can see initially we were expecting a pullback, then we can sell, right? It did not give us that. Right now it's testing this zone. Okay, so don't sell it anymore, but I would say look out for buy, right? So you need to wait for the buy setup to come to you. So if where we are right now, the closest setup that we can potentially get a buy is a crawl. If you get that, then I would say yeah, let's focus on the buy, right? If you're trading CAD franc, okay? Because then you'll be looking at this structure perspective, right? Bottom, you can see what happened in the past as well. Okay? You want something like that, right? Of course, this crawl here isn't the nicest crawl of all, but that's what we mean by crawlish formation, right? And then you get a bounce, right? So you want to see something similar here. Okay, something similar. Then you trade it to the upside. That will be a nice little upside trade. Okay, so you're basically trading the range, right? Okay, so quite clear now, right? For CAD franc is quite clear. Way clearer than like Euro franc. Okay, yeah. So I hope those are clear and helpful. Okay. Equities index, Hang Seng 850. I would say don't touch it now. Seems like overall the equities market seems to be falling quite a bit. Yeah, unless you're interested in selling it, right? But I think 850 and Hang Seng, not the best time to be selling as well. We're basically testing some zone. If you're interested in selling the global equities, probably S&P would be presenting a better opportunity to sell, right? As I mentioned, if you can get a pullback, then you expect that downside. Okay. Yeah, so overall, let me just very quickly go back to my personal list, right? The one that I'm looking out for Okay, basically here, right, those that you can see tagged in orange, those that are the potential opportunities that I would suggest that you want to have it in your list, right? And those are the things that I'm personally looking into. Okay, yeah, so yeah, that's all from me. Kind of hope that today's session again, on a week-to-week basis, kind of give you some ideas on what to work out, right, for the week. Okay, yeah, so that's all from me. As of today, from everything trading side, we do not have any clear future events lined up yet in terms of the specific date. I think we do have a bit, but I don't have the link for your registration at the moment. We do have some events lined up on November, okay, but the specific kind of like time and the link of registration is not up yet. I just want to let you know that we do run events online, offline quite regularly. Okay. Yeah. So do we update you? One things are firm. Maybe next Monday itself. Okay. So last but not least, again for some of you, I think you're already aware of this. I'm actually having a PAM account with running over here that's open to the public. So if you're interested to kind of join the PAM account, okay, let me just bring this performance up, right? So if you're interested to join the PAM account, okay, just share you the performance up to date. So we started in May this year, right? So you can see on average, if you average it out, it's about close to 4%, right, up to now. If you're interested to join this, right, basically what PAM means is that you're able to tag your trading account and follow the trades that I take, and then at the end of the month, if we have profits, we're just gonna split the profit. There's no extra fee. Okay, it's just basically profit share itself. So if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about this, if you're watching it on on YouTube, there's actually a WhatsApp link in the description box below. You can click that link, it will bring you over to WhatsApp. Reach out to the team, let them know that you're interested in the PAM. They will then be able to give you a little bit more information on how you can get started. Okay. Yeah, so for those of you who are in Zoom, I think you're probably already aware of this. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, this is more for those of you who are maybe watching on YouTube, not aware of this and just want to highlight that there's this PAM account that I'm running. Okay, and if you want to tag along, where you don't need to, actively go and trade the market, basically tag your account to mine, and then as a master pooled account, we'll just execute the trades at the end of the month. We'll just do a profit share. Okay, so that's all from me for today. Okay, all the best to your trading for the week. Okay, and as usual, we'll see you guys next Monday again, and I'll kind of update you guys on the specific dates and time of the event that we're running in November. Okay, so that's all. See you guys next session. Okay, bye bye.